So the next speakers, there's two that wanted to join us, Ivan and David from CUB Trasporti, which is a rail workers union in Italy. And I noticed in the text that they sent me that they wanted to read out that they're also connected to the International Labour Network of Solidarity and Struggle. So Italian workers, extremely welcome here. So please, I don't know which one of you will be reading it out, but do you want to do that now?
So good afternoon, everyone. We have prepared a written text that I will have my daughter read because she has a better pronunciation than me in English. At the end of the reading, my job colleague David will add something more. Lucrezia?
Okay. Good afternoon, comrades, and thanks for the invitation. Public transport in Italy is now almost completely privatized, which applies in particular to local road transport, which is now divided into private companies at the regional level, and for air transport, which after the divestment of the national airline Alitalia, is a prey to Maxim's speculations that in recent years have led to the firing of thousands of workers. And the redundancy fund is the social security instrument to support fired people, but this is at the expense of the community and therefore of general taxation, which is a quite serious problem, considering that in Italy there is no property taxation, which we has been asking for years, and instead most of the taxes are paid by the low and the middle classes. Regarding this, it is right to distinguish between the so-called center-left organizations currently in parliament, that actually have strongly reactionary positions on labor policies and support the dynamics of capitalist exploitation, just like the right organization now in government, which applies in particular to the Democratic Party and for the third pole. And on the other hand, nowadays, the forces of the left that refer to Marxist or libertarian ideologies don't have parliamentary representation because, unfortunately, even in the last elections, they presented themselves divided and so didn't reach the 3% barrier necessary to enter parliament. And a similar distinction must also be made for the trade unions forces, as in Italy there are three large national trade unions named CGL, CISL and UIL, which despite having been the protagonists of great workers' struggles in the 70s, today they are totally subject to the capitalist system and bourgeois institutions and the dynamics of power. It is not a coincidence that some former trade unionists sit on various boards of directors of the major Italian companies. Then there is also a series of independent trade unions called base unions, which were born as an alternative to confederal trade unionism, and are unions that really fight for the interests of the workers. And the major Italian base unions are USB, COBAS, and CUB. And we are railway workers enrolled on the transport sector of the CUB trade union, which in acronym means Basic Unitary Confederation. And the railway sector is the only transport sector still managed by the government. In fact, the railway network is publicly owned, and Ferrovie dello Stato SpA the largest railway transport company, is also owned by the Italian government. However, privatization dynamics have been underway for years, which have already massively influenced freight transport and have introduced some private carriers into both local and national passenger transport, such as unlivable and Trinord, which already apply contractual conditions worse than those applied in FSA SPA. Moreover, many processes in the railway sector, once managed directly by the state railways, are now assigned to contractors in precarious working conditions and paid at the lowest price, which applies in particular to cleaning services and in the recent years also to railway maintenance. As regards the state railways, especially in recent years, we have undergone a sharp increase in productivity. In particular, we can mention the transition from 2 train drivers to just 1 driver on trains, and the reduction of train staff on passenger trains. And we have also gone from a maximum of 8 to 10 hours a day. The intervals between a shift and shift have been reduced, and the services with the off-site rest have been increased. All this has occurred through the signing of new national job contracts by the large trade unions, which are complicit in this worsening. Also noteworthy is a sharp drop in the safety levels of job conditions. A clear example of that is the Viareggio railway massacre in 2009, in which a freight train loaded with LPG gas derailed and exploded, and 32 people died. It is only the most serious of several other accidents, and derailments have occurred in recent years. In fact, as Cub Trasporti, an important part of our actions are active towards safety at work. The latest of these actions was a complaint about the safety of the freight train braking system, a problem that affects the whole Europe. And nowadays, however, must be said that as basic trade unionism, even within the railway sector, we are not strong enough to determine effective fighting dynamics and therefore better contractual conditions. Despite this, we are continuing building a mobilization and an important strike day on the 2nd of December with the national strike of all public and private categories called by basic trade unionism. Unfortunately, Italian law allows strikes for a maximum of 24 continuous hours, with an interval of at least 10 days between 2 strikes, and with very strong limits in the sectors that the law defines as essential, as transport, health, and school, where are required several guaranteed services even during the strike. However, the strike of the 2nd of December is not specific for better contractual conditions, but is mainly a strike against the high cost of living and inflation. We hope it can also be useful as a signal against the new right government, which has nationalist and racist tendencies. As the Italian railway workers of Cub Trasporti, we join the International Trade Union Network, and we have international contacts with other railway workers, in particular with the Sud Rail in France and with the Spanish CGT. And recently we participated at the Congress of the Railway American Trade Union, named Rail Workers United. We welcome the strengthening of relationships, especially between European railways workers, hoping in the future when we will be able to do that, to organize a European strike in the whole transport sector. We conclude by expressing our solidarity for the strikes you are holding in England, which are of great inspiration to you. And so thanks for your attention to us.